When David Richardson turned 60, he thought life was finally slowing down. After decades of working as a high school history teacher in Ohio, raising two children, and helping his wife Patricia manage their home, he was looking forward to simple joys: gardening, reading in his armchair, and visiting his grandchildren in Chicago. But as he blew out the candles on his birthday cake that year, a quiet thought lingered in his mind. How much time did he really have left? The average life expectancy in America hovers around 77 to 80 years, depending on lifestyle and genetics. Reaching 85 sounded like a distant dream. David had lost several friends already, some to strokes, some to heart problems, others to cancer. Each funeral he attended left him asking the same question: why do so many people fail to live beyond 85? And more importantly, what could he do to avoid becoming another name in the obituary section before his time? David wasn't the only one asking these questions. His neighbor, Martha Jenkins, a 72-year-old retired nurse, often reminded him that growing old was not only about surviving but about maintaining dignity, mobility, and joy. Martha had seen too many patients give up on their health after 60, falling into destructive routines. She called them silent killers, habits that seemed harmless day to day but piled up over years, cutting lives short. One chilly autumn afternoon, David invited Martha over for coffee. He wanted to talk about aging honestly, without the sugarcoating people usually put on the subject. Sitting at the kitchen table, steam rising from their mugs, they began a conversation that would change David's perspective on growing older. Martha leaned forward, her eyes sharp and clear despite her years. "David, most people don't make it to 85 because they fall into 5 deadly habits after 60. They don't even realize it's happening. It's not just about genetics, it's choices, day after day." David frowned. 5 habits? What do you mean? "Let me explain," Martha said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had seen countless lives in hospitals. "First, people stop moving. Second, they eat like they're still 40. Third, they neglect sleep. Fourth, they let loneliness take over. And fifth, they refuse regular checkups. Each one chips away at health until it's too late." David sat back, stunned. He thought about his routine. He had stopped going on long walks, excusing himself with bad knees. His dinners often included fried foods, and he had a bad habit of staying up late watching television. After Patricia passed away 3 years ago, loneliness had crept in, though he tried to hide it. And as for checkups, he usually avoided the doctor unless something was seriously wrong. Martha's words hit him hard because they were true. The days that followed became a turning point for David. He decided not to ignore the wisdom Martha had shared. Instead, he began reflecting on each habit and how he could make changes, even small ones, to increase his chances of living a fuller, longer life. He remembered his friend George, who died suddenly of a heart attack at 68. George had been the life of every party, always with a drink in hand, but he never exercised. He used to joke, "Why waste time walking when I can drive?" But George's sedentary lifestyle caught up with him. David realized that avoiding movement was like handing over years of life voluntarily. Inspired, he began with 10-minute walks around the block, gradually building stamina. Within months, he noticed his joints loosening, his breathing improving, and his mood lifting. Food was another battle. His daughter Emily once scolded him for eating too much fast food. "Dad, you can't eat cheeseburgers 3 times a week and expect to be around for the grandkids' graduations," she teased. At first, David brushed it off, but Martha's words echoed in his mind. Slowly, he swapped greasy lunches for salads, added more fruit to his breakfasts, and learned to enjoy grilled salmon instead of fried chicken. It wasn't easy. Habits formed over decades resist change, but David found joy in experimenting with new recipes. Sleep was perhaps the most underestimated of all. David had spent years burning the midnight oil, grading papers, then later watching late-night shows. He thought sleep was wasted time, but his body began teaching him otherwise. He often woke up groggy, with little energy. Martha suggested he treat sleep like medicine, giving his body the chance to repair itself. Following her advice, David began going to bed earlier, turning off the television, and reading a book instead. Within weeks, He felt more alert, his memory sharper, and his body stronger. But the hardest of all was loneliness. Losing Patricia had left an ache that nothing seemed to fill. For months, David lived in silence, only breaking it with the sound of the television. Martha reminded him that loneliness wasn't just sad, it was dangerous. Studies showed it raised blood pressure, weakened the immune system, and increased the risk of dementia. Determined not to let it destroy him, David joined a local senior center. At first, it felt awkward, but soon he found himself enjoying card games, storytelling nights, and even dance classes. He made new friends, laughed again, and rediscovered the joy of human connection. Finally, there were medical checkups. Like many men his age, David hated going to the doctor. He preferred ignorance, believing that what he didn't know couldn't hurt him. But Martha told him bluntly, "David, early detection saves lives. Don't wait until something breaks down." Swallowing his pride, he booked a physical exam. To his surprise, he discovered his blood pressure was higher than it should be, but it wasn't too late. With medication and lifestyle adjustments, he brought it under control. Each change felt small at first, but over time, they added up. David felt more alive at 62 than he had at 58. His children noticed the difference. His grandchildren loved playing with him in the park, and even neighbors commented on how his energy had returned. But what struck David most was the shift in his mindset. He no longer saw aging as a slow decline but as a challenge, an opportunity to live deliberately. He understood now why so many people never made it past 85, not because fate was cruel, but because they surrendered too soon to destructive habits. One evening, after a lively day at the senior center, David sat on his porch, the setting sun painting the sky in orange and purple hues. Martha joined him, bringing over a plate of homemade oatmeal cookies. "You've changed, David," she said with a smile. "I had to," he replied. "I realized I want to be here when my granddaughter walks down the aisle, when my grandson graduates college. I don't want to just exist until 80. I want to live well into my 80s, maybe even 90s. Martha nodded. "That's the secret, you know. Longevity isn't about luck. It's about choosing every day not to give in to those habits that shorten life." In that moment, David felt grateful, not only for Martha's wisdom but for the second chance to rewrite his future. He knew he couldn't control everything. Accidents and illnesses were part of life. But he could stack the odds in his favor by refusing the traps that claimed so many of his peers. As the years rolled by, David's determination paid off. At 70, he was still walking daily. At 75, he was still teaching history part-time at a community